Rounding out our tiny Toonapalooza is Emmy Award winner Eric Bauza, the voice of Buster Bunny in Tiny Toons University. So, of course, you realize this means podcast.
Are you ready, eager young space cadets?
Meep, meep.
I call Pussy Cat.
There's the limit.
Where's the kaboom? There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom.
Hello, I'm Jonathan Graves, your host, and if you're tiny or toony or just a little bit loony, then you've come to the right place. When something means podcast, it really means there's something worth podcasting about in the Looniverse. And right now, Eric Bauza is in studio, so we have a lot to get through. Let's just get started. Eric, how are you, and welcome.
Hiya, Toonsters. How's it going out there? And this means podcast world.
I'm doing good. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me back. This is like a long time coming, I know, and I apologize for my absence throughout all of this, all the goings on in the Looney Tunes universe. There's
No
lots
worries.
lots to cover. But how are you?
Well, I've been here talking about it. You've been out there making Looney Tune history, but I'm good. Yeah, just trying to keep up. I've been very busy with the rest of the cast of Tiny Toons Looniversity and promoting that show, as well as everything going on. We had a Cracked article come out that I was so fortunate enough to be a part of, and we broke down the top 100 Looney Tunes characters. If you haven't read that, highly recommend checking that out.
That's cool.
There's so much to do, so much to see within Looney Tunes. So Tiny Toons is making a resurgence, and after 33 years since its debut, it is now more popular than ever. Do you have any memories, like core memories, watching the classic series, Steven Spielberg Presents Tiny Toon Adventures?
Oh man, like in other conversations we've had, many
Yeah.
a million. This is one of the rare ones that's recorded. So thank you for that.
Of course.
It was one of those go-to after-school joys of my life growing up as a kid that inspired me not only as an artist, and actually I'm glad I might be going back to Canada next week for a high school not a high school reunion. I guess it's that time. It's like October. This is when they usually have them, but it's my high school's 50th anniversary, and it's going to
Cool.
be every time I go home, of course, see the parents, but I always dig through all of my old crap, and I have a pile of drawings that I did of like Buster and Babs and Bugs and Daffy. I have a drawing
Nice.
of Bugs with Buster, like it was just one of those things that like, oh boy, I was so proud. Pencil crayon, everyone. I use pencil crayon.
Wow.
Colored
Taking us
pencil.
back.
Yeah, it was one of those things that influenced me to draw, and it celebrated Looney Tunes. It was one of those. We were lucky enough to grow up in the 90s resurgence of Looney Tunes, which is just that was like an unbeatable like stretch of time, like from
It really
89 all the way to like the early 2000s, of course, but it really was 92, 93, 94, all the way to the release of Space Jam, I'd say. And Tiny Toons was like right up there, right at the top.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, was it Plucky Goes to Hollywood? Was that
Yes.
that was the one. That was like the one of like any time that was on. And I remember the first time seeing it, my mind was blown. Kudos to the credited writers and directors on that one, especially the designers. I believe Bruce Timm storyboarded that entire thing.
He did. He
yeah.
did.
And I mean, yeah, it shows. Like the drawings and the caricatures are spectacular.
Michael Keaton is in there as
yes.
Batman. It's just wonderful.
The anime, like I am, okay. I was gonna say the holy grail for me of animation cells was owning Bugs and Mickey in a cell from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and mission accomplished.
Better let him have it, Bugs.
Okay, Doc. Whatever you say. Here's the spare.
Thank you. Ah, no!
I should really cut up all my credit cards and bank cards. I should never be allowed to any cell animation shop. But my new holy grail is to find an animation cell of like the Batmobile
Ooh.
in that episode. That scene
Yeah.
where it revs up. Like the animation of whoever did the effects animation on that, as well as
Right.
like, drawing vehicles has always been like one of those things I wish I could do well. Uh
It can't be
ooh,
easy. It can't.
that like I think about the poor people that worked on Transformers. It's like imagine like drive with a ruler, you're like, "Oh god." But yeah, there's something that was so amazing about that entire sequence where Hampton is parking the Batmobile and like this like is the Batmobile of course is indestructible. So all the
Yes.
cars getting smashed aside and then it scoots up into it hits the moon, right? And doesn't the
It
moon turn into the bat signal?
it does.
The
That's
bat
the little,
symbol?
like, homage to Tim Burton's movie. But
And
yeah, and then Hampton has to, like, parallel park this thing, which he doesn't even know the controls, or I don't even think he can reach the steering wheel, like, it's so
well,
oblong and weird.
it's classic Looney Tunes where, it's a throwback to when Bugs was in the airplane where it's like,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I wonder which button starts this thing.
and it's like a wall of buttons. It's like like one shot you could see out the window, and then it just for the sake of the joke, it cuts to like just an entire mechanism of like buttons and dials, and of course he hits the right one off the top.
It's
But
that Bugs Bunny luck.
oh, of course, rabbit. She has two lucky rabbit's feet. But yeah, I loved the restaurant scenes where, oh my god, there are probably jokes in there you couldn't tell today, but but I just love
What is,
Mike Tyson. Plucky was like,
what would you like to order, sir? I'll have your Santa Fe fingerlings, please.
yeah, Santa Fe fingerlings. I think I'm not even sure, but yeah, it was like the best. I laugh at that, and then of course the Michael Keaton.
Another Hollywood illusion shattered.
Where the silhouette like of Batman completely does not match like how stubby they make Michael
Right.
Keaton.
Nope,
And
not at all.
yeah, I'm just gonna say it now. For Comic-Con next year, I'm just gonna get like the caricature of Michael Keaton on a shirt
Oh, perfect.
from that episode. Oh my god, yeah. To own a cell, to own that cell, someone has that in their possession.
Yes, and you need to track them down for
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
But Tiny Toons was up there. Tiny Toons was up there, of course. Animaniacs, Freakazoid, anything in that golden the '90s renaissance of Looney Tunes for me again was amazing, and that's where we first hear Jeff Bergman and of course
Yeah.
Bob Bergen in their respected roles as Bugs and Daffy and of course Porky. Amazing talents.
For you guys, anything. As long as I'm paid in advance.
Incredible work from those gentlemen taking over from Mel Blanc, who had just passed away, and including Noel Blanc himself even stepped in for a few cartoons. But yeah, the 90s was such a heyday of animation and of admiration for these characters that had been kind of lost to time, because after the 60s they were no longer in theaters, and then there was this weird like, where are they going to be, and they were somewhere released on Laserdisc if you could find them. And, they became this rarity until they had this big syndication
Yep.
on ABC. And then we had the Saturday morning cartoons that we knew and loved in the 90s.
The Bugs Bunny and Tweety show.
Tonight, what heights will hit? On with the show, this is it.
Yeah. Oh, man. So many fun
but
memories growing up.
curtains, lights. This is it, the night of nights.
That was how I started Saturday.
Yeah, I mean that was like the big fanfare, and you knew you're off to a good start, and it was just like, what was it? Was it half an hour or an hour?
I think it was half an hour.
Okay, God,
Yeah.
I wish it were longer, but
Well, now it can be as long as you want in your own living room.
nothing was better to me as a kid than that opening and knowing what you're about to get into. I have such vivid memories of watching the Bugs Bunny and Tweety show And it's a story I love telling over and over again. It was just I was so obsessed uh before the internet and before you could add to cart those damn animation cells. I need to go to a 12-step program to rid myself of my obsession with animation cells. But it started for me with, I believe it was the Chuck Jones Gallery back in the
Oh, wow.
day. Back in the day, because they were like doing those limited, you know, reproduction cells of like What's Opera Doc and all the classics. But they had them all in a catalog that was about the size of a TV guide, so you could see the cells, and they were even smaller inside in the pages. You could see them clearly, but they wouldn't be big enough for you to like reproduce and not need to buy the cell. So
Right, right.
I would send away for these. There were two. They had one that was thicker, and then I remember, God, I wish I knew where they were because they were just so cool. Um, I remember just every page turn, I was like, okay, I'm going to draw that one. I'm going to draw this one. And that's kind of like how I learned how to
Wow.
draw. Yeah. And then there was like this really cheesy how to draw Bugs Bunny and Friends book. You could find it on eBay. I searched the other day because I know I have mine still. And you could actually, I got to scan and post it. You could actually see an early drawing I did of Wile E. Coyote. It's
Oh,
awful.
nice.
And you can see my brother, who's 6 years older than me, my brother Alan, who's an amazing artist. He taught me how to draw, really. You see him doing it like beside my ugly drawing of Wile E. Coyote, and I was slightly jealous. But yeah.
Since we're talking about the 90s, though, I wanted to bring up this glass that a friend of mine, Jenny Lorenzo, friends of the podcast, got me from Seattle, and it's celebrating Bugs's 50th. I had never seen this design before, but
Really?
that was actually that was part of the resurgence because it was Bugs's 50th, and they had all of this merchandise come out, all of this celebration. The WB stores went crazy, and we also had video games. And the first video game I ever beat from start to finish was a Bugs Bunny 50th video game for the NES.
That's amazing. I didn't know that they had a game specifically about his anniversary. That's
They
great.
did. They did. It was so subliminal in its messaging that you would actually hop around as Bugs Bunny and collect WB emblems, and they would turn into, or sorry, you would collect carrots and they would turn into WB emblems. Yeah.
I
They
love
got me early
how
on.
I love how like just in your face they are about like just the self-advertising
Yeah.
when it comes to Looney Tunes. And that's, again, for all the Disney listeners out there, it's like you were born on one side of the fence, like the WB/HB side or the Disney side. And I love Disney, don't get me wrong, but I definitely fell on the other side of that fence. But that exact design of Bugs, I haven't seen the other characters in the tuxes, but
Oh, yeah.
that specific design I just bought. Sorry, Warner Brothers intellectual property. I just bought a bootleg version of that T-shirt online, and I was like, wow, someone like it's also the same. I'll have to forward it to you, but it's also the same website where I found like the '90s rectangle Hanna-Barbera logo of Betty Rubble
Oh,
that I
yeah.
have.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, I like that. I wish they had all of the characters like this. But yeah, there was a Bugs Bunny 50th, and it's so bad. It's such a bootleg, but it's the design. It is the design.
The
But
legit
like,
design. Okay.
I'm afraid to wear it in direct sunlight, or it'll just burn off of my like it'll just like it'll just disappear.
So you were talking about growing up drawing these characters. So the Looney Tunes DNA was like in you really young. And one of the episodes that you got to voice Buster in was actually examining Toon DNA and its impact on bones with alongside Wile E. Coyote, who then comes up with this genius scheme to rid the Toons of their tooniness and their elasticity. I just think that that was a really clever way to write that character.
Yeah, I mean, again, these episodes compared to the original series, which just two different very approaches and two different styles of
Oh,
storytelling
totally.
and joke making. The intent and the idea of just cartoons existing at all, and what makes them special, and what it means to this class of cartoon characters to become their predecessors is still there. It's all still there. Those ingredients, the core of what made the show so great to begin with, is still there, but it's just the long play and just it just seems a bit like very intelligent and very like cleverly told, and that's all due to the writers and the showrunners, Nate and Aaron.
Yeah.
And of course Spielberg is still on the show like as executive producer, and from what I know, sees and reads and watches everything that comes through.
Can you
I've
talk a
seen
bit?
Yeah, I've seen artists like post, quoted. They won't show the actual email, but they'll quote the email like saying, "By the way, like Spielberg had this to say about your color choices," and it's like a
Wow.
quote from an email, and it's like, okay, I watched Jaws every day as a kid, and Tiny Toons, of course. I just never thought in a million years, I would be working on this.
Well, that reminds me,
Oh
you
yeah,
had
go ahead.
you had a really special audition, to
Yes,
like, learn that you got the role. Could you talk a bit about how that process happened?
the original round of auditions that came out for this show. For me, as a male actor, of course, there's Buster, there's Plucky, there's Hampton. There really wasn't that much else. I believe the roles of uh, Bugs and Porky were always going to be cast with Jeff and Bob, just out of sheer like respect to them as artists and what they
Sure.
did in the first place, and a full circle moment for them, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Great, do not disturb that. And then they were just like, would you like to voice Daffy? That was actually the first role I got on the show, was Daffy.
Oh, great.
uh
Well, your
so
Daffy is amazing.
Oh, well, thank you. Finally, someone said my name. I was dying over here in the corner, waiting for someone to say
he's like Beetlejuice, you have to say Daffy 3 times.
Daffy Juice, Daffy Juice. It's showtime.
Yeah.
I'm the ghost with the most, babe.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I'm really hoping for that parody this month.
Well, they did Daffy as Pennywise. You saw that
Right.
shirt. Yeah, I mean, that
Yeah.
exists.
Daffy wise.
And for the WB 100 celebration, you participated in Acme Fools, where you also voiced Pennywise, but as Sylvester.
Do you want a balloon too, Georgie?
I'm not supposed to take stuff from strangers.
Oh, well, I'm Pennywise, the dancing clown.
Yeah, much like the DuckTales reboot, the auditions coming through for Buster, Plucky, and Hampton were the first thing in red bold letters was, we do not want voice matches to the original. We want familiar but different, which to me is like a hat on a hat on a hat, because it's like the original audition for this guy, for Buster, was familiar but different.
Right.
We don't want Bugs, but we want something reminiscent of Bugs.
Sure.
Anytime you've ever seen that interview with Joe Alasky, it's on YouTube, where they're like, well, how did you, because I mean, the original Tiny Toons just blew up, right? To the point where they were asking voice actors to be on the news talking about this, which is great, like what we're doing now. Yeah, it's crazy. There was like a reporter asking Joe Alasky, what did you do different to change it from Daffy to Plucky? And it's classic Joe Lasky going,
Instead of talking with a frontal lisp, I just turned it sideways and it's a lateral lisp. And that is how I differentiate my Plucky from Daffy.
yeah, like
Brilliant.
it was just so crazy to see how even that small change was definitely enough.
Let me out of this torture chamber. It's Friday. I want to go home.
Don Messick voicing Hampton.
And you shall play one of the proud, the few, the underpaid. You are a green valet.
But I don't know how to drive.
It wasn't a stutter. There was no stutter.
But Hampton had a stuffed nose, and I believe that is gee, Plucky.
Like that was his affectation on his voice. And of course, the gritty raspiness of Buster that Charlie Adler and later John Kassir provided for Buster.
Every time I do Bugs, he kind of has that grit to him. But Yeah, and Buster's kind of like in that area, but just a little bit lighter,
Yeah.
And
Again, Charlie is just such a force. He's such a force. Watching anything that he does, he like Mel Blanc, one of probably the only other actors aside from Mel Blanc to me, sounds like he's bursting at the seams when he does his performances is Charlie. Because if you've ever seen or worked with him in person, it is like that. It's like you're in a wind tunnel, and he's like, I can imagine what how sweaty or how many t-shirt changes must he have had for Cow and Chicken.
Oh, when he was doing this, and like, hey, what's up,
Cow and like, oh, red guy, like, what the hell? Like for 4 hours?
Oh, command. Yes, please solve our earthly problems with your space smarts. Let's see. The solution to all problems is puppets. Oh, puppets. Yes. What else? And make me the big cheese, of course.
No wonder he's so like svelte and skinny, because all the fat just pours out of his glands because he's just pumping on all cylinders. And
and he's currently a voice coach.
Yeah, and a voice director. I work with him on a preschool show right now, and but yeah, it was such a difficult task to kind of deliver what they wanted, because all I wanted to do was do my impressions of Joe Lasky and Don Messick, and that's all I kept submitting. I never auditioned for Buster.
Wow.
I never auditioned for Buster in the original. They went through several rounds of casting, and I never submitted for Buster. I only wanted Plucky and Hampton, and God, David Arrigo Jr., you bastard. You're so talented. We get it.
He's very talented.
Both. What he did, what he's done with those characters is genius. Good job. And they couldn't have gone to a nicer, more talented fellow. And then
totally.
I guess somewhere in production, it was, getting close to like crunch time, the area of time where they're like, okay, well, this is it. The cement's about to dry. If you're going to make any kind of changes now, it's now or never. So I just was told like, hey, they're still not satisfied with the character Buster. They're opening it up again to some auditioning, and they asked me to audition again. And this time I was like, well,
if I'm not gonna be Plucky, or Hampton, or Bugs for that matter, I guess he's not happy with just Daffy. I
guess,
I'll
give it my best shot. And
the little rabbit.
It was hard not to try to do something that was so close to Charlie, but at the same time, I was like, well, I'm not gonna just Charlie's here, like I'm not gonna imitate exactly. There's no way I could. I mean, again, I don't have the abdominal muscles for it, or the biceps. But it was just like, if I were voicing Buster, like it's more natural to my own voice than it is, than when I'm doing a Bugs Bunny impression or when I am playing Bugs Bunny. It was kind of like, okay, if I were to do Buster with my natural voice and that rasp and that attitude, still kind of like the happy-go-lucky kind of everyday guy, but he's got to have a little bit of pretty much how I feel about like Looney Tunes if I were ever to meet Bugs, like that nerd out kind of quality, that obsessive behavior when it comes to these characters. I know everything about these characters. I've become these characters, and that's kind of like what Buster, if there's any one strand of DNA or one line connecting me and Buster, is that we both just love the Looney Tunes legacy and want to do these guys proud.
Exactly. And that's why I think your casting for Buster is perfect, because you do bring that authenticity to it. And it's within that you exude Buster. And coming from, Looney Tunes cartoons where you are Bugs Bunny, I think that actually helped with you finding Buster and knowing that Bugs is already inside you, because I feel like Buster and Bugs are one of the same coin. And when you remove, what makes Bugs Bugs and you bring in what makes Buster Buster, it was able to come out of you. And whenever I watch the show, I'm like, that is Buster. Like, you nailed it. And I don't hear Eric Bauza. I hear Buster Bunny.
Oh, wow. That's so nice of you.
I think that is like one of the true testaments to the casting here is that they do find the authentic personality behind the character. I think David exudes both Hampton and Plucky.
Oh, you should
And
read some of the texts that I get from David or in a group chat. We have a Tiny Toons group chat, and I go, man, every time he says something, I go, classic Plucky. I always say classic Plucky. I'm like, you are Plucky. It's not even that you're trying to, or even like, I'm going to step into, it's like, he's Plucky.
yeah, the casting
great.
director did a really good job of finding the tune within, if
Yes,
you will.
yes.
And I think that's what allowed for this new interpretation to feel so real, like to feel like cut from the same cloth as the original, because that's what Spielberg wanted.
Absolutely. And then for me, I love each and every time I get to work on something that we refer to as reboots or reimaginings, but in a long time, the art style for me on this show, it's like, you know, it's weird because you watch the original and clearly there's like several different studios working on episodes. They're
Yeah.
not all done by the same person, and that's fine. That's the variety. Just like the original Looney Tunes, it's like we had the Chuck Jones ones, we had the Clampett ones. There's
Yeah.
differences, but I just love how refined the art style is on this show, and it's just taking the best of everything that we remember from the original, and this is just what it is. And again, there's nuances and little differences even within this show. Like any show, it starts off, you see where they started, and then it gets better as they go. But just the overall design, the overall aesthetic, I feel they really nailed it, and I'm always so excited to see what it's gonna look like. And
Yeah.
like this one for me is like, Olympic judges, the German judge 10, the French judge 10, 10s all across the board. It's got the gold.
Watching it at the screening at Comic-Con was so refreshing, and like it was just a bombastic splash of vibrant colors across the screen, and the characters just leapt off. Like it felt like they were jumping around in the theater with us.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've mentioned already is that it was such an honor and privilege to sit in front of the entire cast while you guys were giggling behind me. And I just embraced that experience, and I'm never going to forget it. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're
And
part of that.
also,
You're part of the Warner Brothers family. If you haven't already gotten that, if you haven't opened the envelope, the invitation.
I'm just waiting on my leather jacket.
I know.
So am I, Doc.
It's like, I think one of the sleeves came in. That's about it.
There you go. But we did bring up Charlie Adler. I also wanted to bring up John Cassier. He
Yes.
was the other voice of Buster back in the 90s, and he was also the voice of the Crypt Keeper from Tales from the Crypt, which is a show that I loved growing up as well.
And Looney Tunes show, he was Pete Puma.
Oh, yeah.
He was Pete Puma in Looney Tunes show. I remember recording with him. I was Marvin, and I guess it was like it was like a strange trio. Was it Daffy, Marvin, and Pete Puma,
Pete?
or is Pete Puma? Yeah, it was like they had like a bowling team or something. I don't know, but yeah, there's one episode where we're all bowling together, and I was like, this is the weirdest thing.
How thoughtful!
Thanks, Daffy. I took a 20 out of your wallet.
Daffy, you're the best! We couldn't ask for a more generous team captain.
There's more where that came from. There's more where that came from, right? Oh.
I hope no one confused Marvin's head for a bowling ball.
Well, that's what I always thought. It was a bowling ball with a Spartan helmet. He's one hole shy of being a bowling ball on his face. Right? He doesn't have a mouth, but yeah, John is another legendary actor, and I've worked with him many times, and we're buddies. And gosh, it's really insane to think that these gigantic acts to follow between Charlie and John and then me, oh boy, it's like
You fit right in.
I always say that I'm the song that you play at a bar when you want people to go home, you know? It's like, "Oh, here comes Bauza," and it's like the lights turn on and you're like, "Ugh, okay, I gotta get out of here," you know? No, I'm just kidding. That's the Canadian in me saying that. But yeah, it truly is an honor, if I haven't already made that apparent. It really is another one of those jobs or opportunities or gigs or whatever you want to call it that I've had in my lucky, it's almost over 20 years now, a stretch working in this industry. One of the, like, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like at this point I don't even know what's coming next. But I if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, I'd be like, great, I did it all. I'm fine. I
I'm
I
out of
would I
here.
I would just be like, oh damn, I missed the Freakazoid reboot. That's the only thing I would regret, is not seeing another version of Paul Rugg as Freakazoid, because I think, man, if there was one show that you could ever give back to two people, let it be Tom Ruger and Paul Rugg to do a
Yeah.
Freakazoid reboot. I
Oh,
actually talked to
man.
Paul like 2 years ago, like about like having the idea of getting Freakazoid rebooted just on social media,
Oh,
just having him interrupt people's TikToks, or having animators like animate over popular TikToks where
yeah,
he's like doing a dance, or he's not even saying anything, he just has to be there. And like, what better character than, Dexter Douglas, nerd computer ace, was surfing on the internet and was zapped in cyberspace. Come on,
he
like,
lives
that doesn't.
there. Yeah,
Yeah, that's where he was
yeah,
born. So why not have him just kind of screw around and mess around with people's social media feeds, and like just start there, and
yeah.
then do the show. But if I don't know, I had that idea, but
But no one listens to me. No one cares about my bright idea. My $1 million ideas.
yeah.
They should really listen to you. I would die if Freakazoid did the Bugs Bunny challenge on social media. I think that would take off.
I'm just saying, there's so much you can do.
There
Paul would
really
just have
is.
to sit
There's
at
so many
home and
dances.
make fun of this video, Paul. It's like Beavis and Butthead when they watch the music videos.
Yeah,
You could
yeah.
just have him, or doing like a
Mystery
duet.
Science Theater 3000 it.
Yeah. Or doing a duet with Freakazoid or the Lobe or any one of those characters. Like, have them just do something with them. And even if it's just on social media for now, what if it were just a campaign, or I don't know. It would be a great thing to revisit. And I'm sure, I'm so happy when he was on the Teen Titans Go episode. And did you see
Yeah,
that one?
I
So
did. Yeah,
good.
I had to
So
look it up.
good.
Definitely, and also Beetlejuice was on there, which is a property I want rebooted by WB. They have it. They have all of it. I don't understand why it's not an animated series again, because it was so good.
Oddly enough, yeah, and it's if you read the facts on that show, it was, I think, the only show at the time to be on 3 different channels at the same time.
Yeah,
ABC, Fox, and it was somewhere else. It
I
was,
think with
or
Nickelodeon.
yeah, it was one of the most popular and highly rated shows that, like, again, oddly enough, it always comes back to the how morbid it was. It's like a kid playing with a ghost, like a dead guy.
Yeah,
And he was always in the netherworld, right? The
what's not to love?
sandworms and armpit farts. It's the pits. Yeah, I mean, like, it's crazy. And it was a Canadian co-production.
Right.
It was one of the things that we did on Retro Kid. One of my most proudest moments was designing that Beetlejuice hoodie, where I wanted the face that gets squished into the rectangle. In the beginning of the show, he squishes his face, and then it becomes the Beetlejuice logo for whatever reason.
Right.
I just wanted that face across the chest of a hoodie. But yeah, it was really strange because we had model sheets from the show, and I wanted to use those so desperately because they were just the perfect designs, but we weren't allowed to use them.
Hmm.
Just mainly images from the show, or imagery from the show. But also the model sheets had a property of Geffen on them.
Oh,
Like,
interesting. So that's the
yeah,
production company that did the movie.
yeah. So Geffen at some point still had and had obtained the rights for Beetlejuice, even though it was now part of the Warner Brothers library.
Yeah.
Uh, but it might have been one of the reasons why we couldn't use those specific model sheets, because it was just pre-production stuff as opposed to here's just the final product. Use these. But yeah, interesting. Very interesting stuff.
Totally. Well, you've already answered some of my questions ahead of them, so I'm not going to ask them because we would be retreading those
What
exact
happens,
same answers.
what happens when you invite a rambler on your show?
It's all good. I have others. So Buster is looking for a mentor in Extra So Extra and believes the assigned teacher is going to be Bugs Bunny, but the rug is pulled out from under him and it is revealed to be I believe 79th on our list of top 100 characters over on Cracked, Merlin the Magic Mouse.
Now, is that
And
in
apparently,
chronological order? Like it's like we're running out of characters. What character are we at? 78. So next one's 79. Better be good.
actually, it's a bit of contention online. People want Cool Cat to be ahead of Merlin. I don't know why, but
Oh.
there you go. Some Looney Tune controversy for you. Um, but who is your mentor as far as like voice acting goes, and what lessons did they instill in you as an actor?
I mean, of course, Mel Blanc will always be the crowning jewel, I think, for most voiceover artists.
Totally.
And June Foray, of course.
Incredible
But for
legacies.
me, yeah, again, for me, the most influential voiceover artist for me growing up in my time was getting to study and enjoy the works of Billy West.
Bender, it's us, your friends. You can drop the hillbilly moron act.
Sorry, mister, but I'm no Bender. I'm just a simple farmer. Name's Billy West.
Billy West. What a stupid, phony, made-up name.
He was, Ren and Stimpy, the Red M&M, everyone but Bender on Futurama, and I mean, of course, Phil Lamar was on the show, and Lauren Tom, and Katie Seagal. But yeah, Billy West to me has always been like Mel Blanc in a sense, not because he's done the Looney Tunes characters, but because he's created so many original characters of his own, like Mel Blanc, that he is forever, for me, the modern day Mel Blanc, because he is an original. Like he is, I've had a great career doing voice matches, but I mean, I look at a career like him or like even Jeff Bennett, who has done marquee characters, but can also be a utility guy. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
You just throw him in there and he will do anything like you ask him and more, or give you an idea that you never thought of. And on top of it all is how funny, Billy West is, or Jeff Bennett. But I put them like in the same stratosphere. And then Jim Cummings, of course, and the Jess Harnells and the Rob Paulsons. But the one thing that I remember, I had a panel in Toronto Expo, Fan Expo, a few years back, and I had invited Carolina Ravassa, I invited Rob Paulson, and then I had invited Billy West to be guests on my panel. And it was a great panel.
That's a good panel.
I have it recorded somewhere, some of it. I made them all sing a verse of Drake's song "Hotline Bling," which was fine.
I remember clips of this actually.
Whatever characters they want, because we were in Toronto, and the one piece of advice that like he kind of shared with myself and the rest of the audience was, it was like you can't really teach instinct, which is amazing. You could study forever, like the voice, all the characters. And it's so true because aside from Bugs Bunny, I also am the voice match for Antonio Banderas for Puss in Boots. And that's exactly the 101% the basis of my interpretation of Puss in Boots is the unpredictability, not the accent, but the unpredictability of Antonio's performance of Puss in Boots, which is why he will always forever own that character. No one else could really play that character but him, because I swear to God,
that character.
Oh my God, it's just amazing. It's just, you hear the joy and how unlimited he is as a performer in that role. It's the most like, I like if you were like if he were Google Maps or Waze, he'd go, "Okay, you're going to turn left. Now turn right. Another right and a left." You know, like there's just no way. There's no straight line to get to wherever you need to go. It's like two lefts and a right, or is that two rights and a left, or maybe you go down the middle and then turn back. Yeah, it's like it's
If
so
Waze
like
hasn't hired Antonio Banderas or you, they need to.
I did a the sleep app. You know, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it tells you
The
stories.
calm. Oh, the
Okay,
story.
yeah, calm, yeah.
Yeah.
My little pequeños, it is time for bed, and you are listening to me, Puss in Boots. Yeah, like I swear to God, like I did that, and they're like, "This is great." I think Mick Wingert also did one as Poe
Oh,
for
nice.
Kung Fu Panda. Can you
Yeah.
imagine?
All right, little kitty skadoosh, it's time for bed. Let's go. Yeah, having some noodles and dumplings.
Yeah,
Antonio is so ingrained in Puss in Boots that whenever I actually watch the new Indiana Jones and he shows
yeah.
up, I'm like, is he just doing Puss in Boots in
Yeah.
this?
Indiana Jones, how are you? We're going to scuba dive now. Yeah, it's like kind of insane.
Would you like some leche?
Yeah, I'm like, there is some gazpacho downstairs. Yeah, like I'm like, wow, he's just become Puss in Boots. It's like having like the biggest missed opportunity was to have him in Cats,
Oh,
theatrical musical. Can you imagine? I'm a stubby tubby. Yeah. The leche whisperer. Yeah. I know them
It would've
all.
worked. It would've worked.
I've done so many sessions. Thank you, Antonio. Thank you. Thank you, sir. I've had the pleasure and luck of doing so many sessions as that character. And again, every time I do it, I have to watch the two videos now of him behind the microphone. And I swear to God, it's the most genius thing. They're like, here are all your catchphrases. Just read them for us. Thanks. If you could do 2 to 3 takes per catchphrase, that's great. And none of them are the same as the last. And he goes through it like it's like nothing. It's like Swiss cheese. Like it's like whole. It's nothing. It's the most. I'll still never be able to match how unpredictable he is. Where he wants to whisper and do something like this, and then get really big like that. You know, like it's so crazy. It's so crazy.
Bringing it back to Billy West, though.
How do you teach instinct? There's nothing
Yeah.
you could do. Billy West was not a trained actor, but he is the funniest guy. Like the funniest guy. Of course we know him as Stimpy doing a Larry Fine impression, but you think about the Stooges and Jim Carrey or Mike Myers, it's like this language that they have, and Billy has that natural ability.
Yeah.
No matter what character he's doing, just to make it like, okay, that's the take. You know, there's no other perfect way to read it other than how you just did it. And it's an instant catchphrase that goes on t-shirts and sells millions of dollars. Like he has that gift of like when he does his Nixon impression or just anything he does, like how he talks about Zoidberg, like when he breaks down that voice. And it's just stuff that has naturally influenced him as an actor. But for whatever reason, his experience with that comes through in the performance. And you're just like, damn, I would have never have guessed that's how you would have read it. And it's like, that's what sets him aside from everybody else.
I think it comes also from improv and having a background, like a strong background in that. So
in radio with Howard Stern.
And radio, yeah.
My God, like that. Talk about the School of Hard Knocks. You know, like waking up at probably 5 a.m. And having to sweat through 5 to 10 or whatever, however long they were on the air in the morning, and just come up with bits and write bits, feed them to Howard. That's why if you've ever watched that show, they're like all on their computers. It's because they're all writing stuff to each other during the show. Like they're all sending each other stuff and, setting each other up. And, of course, the amazing sound effects on the show is morning radio is always good for that. But bing bong, cuckoo, honk honk. It's like, oh God. I love when The Simpsons do it.
Has anyone invited you to a morning show?
Oh yeah, plenty of times. I've done Big Boys Neighborhood. I've done them all, and most of them all, and Q-Rock and all that stuff. And I've actually been asked to submit a demo reel for Stern recently.
Oh, nice.
They contacted me, and they're like, "Oh, celebrity impressions," and I'm like, "Oh God, I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know." They already have like Piot Michael and then Matthew Friend on there, so I think they got their bases covered. But yeah, it's so cool to. But I don't know if they've done a Jeff Bridges on the show, man. They haven't done Jeff Bridges on Stern yet, man. I can do that.
You could kill that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or of course, I was on Office Hours recently as Richard Dreyfuss, but not the young Richard Dreyfuss, the older Republican Richard Dreyfuss, not the cock-a-doodle-doo, Bob. Get up, Bob, get out of my house.
Yeah, morning radio would be fun to do, I'm sure.
Man, Richard Dreyfuss had such a unique career, and I
Yeah.
miss his performances.
Of course.
It just took me right back.
One of my all-time favorite Richard Dreyfuss movies, not Stakeout, not another Stakeout, but a movie called Let It Ride. If you've ever seen that movie.
Oh, I haven't.
Oh my God.
Ooh, I have a new Richard Dreyfuss movie.
You're it.
Okay, let me tell you, my friend, and I tell you this because I like you, and I don't want to hog it all for myself. But
I always say Daffy Duck is Richard Dreyfuss with a lisp.
Listen, my friend, I'm not going to be a hot meal for some shark. All this shark wants to do is swim around, eat people, and make little baby sharks. Yeah.
But Let It Ride is about this like this schlub of a husband. He's married to Terry Garr in the movie.
wow.
And he can't get away from gambling, and he's the entire movie is spent at this horse racetrack.
Okay.
He's betting on horses the whole time, and it's it was on like HBO or Showtime once in the last year, and like I hit record like right when it started, and I was like, yes, I have this forever, because I haven't been able to find it on DVD. I'm sure it's out there.
Yeah.
But it is like it's like Richard Dreyfuss 101. It's like the most Richard Dreyfuss.
I told you to bet on that horse.
Yeah, like it's the most Richard Dreyfuss.
I told you I would win, right? I need that money. I'm gonna put the money in my shoe.
I need to track that down.
And that way you can't get it.
Yeah, it's I say go for it. It's so good.
So bringing it back to Tiny Toons real quick, I asked Ashley this question of Babs, so I'm going to ask you this of Buster. What do you think Buster's favorite childhood game to play with the family growing up on the rabbit farm was?
Oh man, that's a pretty good one. I don't know. I mean, there's so many family members. I don't know if it's board games or what could they possibly play on the farm?
Hers was charades.
Yeah, that sounds like a good game, because they're all, especially between Buster and Babs, they're a bit of like they're entertainers, maybe Pictionary. I was thinking of like either maybe they host like a an actual family version of Clue, like they're actually acting out like maybe they're acting out like a murder mystery dinner or something. I don't know.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I mean, but they're also on the farm, so maybe they just like spending time outside. But yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think anything that would anything that would involve them entertaining the entire family as a comedy duo, I think we'll go with.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer, and they are definitely the showman type, especially their duo, show-stopping number.
I'd hate to follow my outstanding performance.
Where they get to put on a show together, and it really, brings out the best of everyone's traits and like what they want out of being a Toon. I think it really showcases that really well, and everybody gets to have their moment. Babs being a director was a really shocking one, but I love that choice.
I'm very happy that the response of the show has been a good one so far. Like a lot of people, of course, whenever whenever the first headline comes out, we're bringing this back, and it's like, no, like people just hate it. They find every reason to hate it, and then it comes out, and then they're like, I still want to hate it, and then they watch it, and they're like, damn it, I can't hate it, it's good. I'm like, oh, whew, I don't know if I've ever really cared about that with anything, because it's like, it's gonna be loved, it's gonna be hated, whatever. But like with this one, I was really paying attention to see what they would say. And it's like, whew, not bad. And if they don't
Yeah.
say anything at all, then that's fine. That's even better, actually. It's fine.
I've seen a lot of
Like,
positive praise thrown to the cast and thrown to the creators of this, Nate and Aaron. And yeah, I think it's well deserved. So kudos to the team. One last
yeah.
question while I have you is,
Yes, sir.
Eric, as yourself, if you were enrolled into Acme Lou, what course or courses would you want to enroll in? And they may or may not already exist.
Cream pie throwing. That's my class. Anything that involves desserts and a food fight.
Have you ever been hit by
I
a
don't
cream
know.
pie?
I haven't, but I have been in a food fight before.
Okay.
But no pies were thrown.
Damn.
Yeah, there's something about cartoon food to me that's always looked delicious. I remember watching, first of all, they always have to pick off a pile of endless food because it's a held frame. Like it's
Yeah.
either a painted background of ribs or chicken, and cartoons always grab it, take one bite, and throw it behind them. I don't know why. They're such wasteful people. Nothing pleases me more than watching Goofy or Donald eat corn on the cob, or any cartoon character will eat corn on the cob like a typewriter, of course.
Oh, yes.
And that's a joke that's already been dated. It's not even like you can eat corn on a cob like an iPhone, because no one gets it. There's no connection there. But a typewriter, yes. And yeah, my goal eventually is to open up a Miyazaki restaurant where anytime they've ever, and I'm sure it exists somewhere, but replicating food that you've ever seen in any Miyazaki film, because it always looks delicious.
Now, I have a pitch for you. How about that, but Tom and Jerry food? Because Tom and Jerry food always looks incredible. And it's like this weird uncanny valley of like, is it real? Is it cartoon? I don't know, but it's delicious.
The paintings are always good. The sound effects of Jerry or Tom swallowing something, like they have like this, it's like an 8 tone like sound effect where it's like it's like this gulp, where it's the most satisfying gulp I've ever heard. I wonder who the voice actor was. If they're like, okay, drink another gallon of water, we're recording in like the 1920s, yeah, or the 30s. But yeah, the food, whenever it was painted, and especially harkening back to the scene in Roger Rabbit where it goes from the cartoon to the live action, where the refrigerator door opens,
yeah,
and you see that chicken and the cheese and the ham steak with the bone in the center, or like the T-bone steak. Whoever painted any one of those Tom and Jerry, either it was like a long dining room table full of food,
Norman Rockwell style,
or anytime a fridge opened in that cartoon, it was just filled. Whoever was living in that house was making bank, because they're like, from like top to bottom. If you look at my fridge, it's like half a head of lettuce, maybe a Red Bull or two,
maybe some peas.
Yeah, definitely a pizza box from 2 weeks ago. Eggs, old eggs. Yeah, it's one pickle in a pickle jar. It's like reminding you to buy pickles because you're almost out. But yeah, cartoon food. Anything with cartoon food, I'm in, and I'm probably gonna get like 100% in that class.
Well, now that everyone's starving, I'm gonna wrap it up here. Eric, again, thank you so much for being on here. I just wanted to mention that October is National Filipino American History Month, so be sure to support that. And you can currently see Eric pretty much everywhere. Crepopolis on Hulu, Kif on Disney Plus, Pupstruction on Disney Plus, Star Trek Lower Decks on Paramount Plus, Rock Paper Scissors on Nickelodeon, Adventure Time Fiona and Cake on Max, and soon to be Invincible Season 2 on Amazon.
Oh, yes.
I went down and I was like, is he on every streaming platform? He is. You are.
Bob's Burgers. I'm also on Bob's Burgers now. I forgot to say that.
Nice, nice.
Yeah. I play Big Bob. I'm Bob's dad on that show. And, his nemesis who works across the street. He's always like zinging Bob. Hey, how's it going, Bob? I hope your business goes down in flames. That's a zoom. Yeah.
Well, congratulations on all of this. It just piles on. And I love the fact that people are coming to you for this because you are, one of the modern great voice actors we have. So congratulations. And also, I haven't had you on since you won the Emmy. And I wanted to say congratulations on the Emmy. You won it for Bugs Bunny and Looney
Thanks,
Tunes
Bob.
cartoons, where you did the voice of Tweety and Marvin and Daffy, of course. And yeah, I mean, it's just a wonderful, thing that you're a part of this.
I always say, and thank you so much for the kind words and your time, but I always say, how'd that feel? Like winning the Emmy? I'm like, in my mind, I'm still sitting there listening to Mark Hamill say his thank you speech on stage, or Gray Delisle, or Tom Kenny, or Frank Welker for that matter.
Yeah.
Like when they put all of our photos up there, I was like, one of these guys is parking cars tonight. The other, the other guys are legendary actors and girl, And that's another thing I was gonna say is like anytime I've ever been involved with these, and this will be the last Emmys I'm sure I'm invited to once people hear it. It's always like unfortunate that they have like 4 dudes and like 1 woman, and it's like they've managed to separate the kids from the adults into their own categories.
Yeah.
Because we used to be up against it's like you versus an 11-year-old girl. And it's like, talent is talent. Don't get me wrong. It is what it is. But they've managed to do young performers now in their own category. I would love to see a day where the voice actresses get their own category from the actors. Because I think about every year that passes and I'm like, there could have been don't tell me that there's not enough like female talent out there to like
there totally is. Yeah.
Just to fill an entire category. I mean, there's plenty. So anyways, that's the last time I'll be invited to the Emmys. And how dare you tell us how to Emmy?
It was a memorable one that you went out on, so it will be remembered forever.
Hey, it was the first kids and family. I call it the friends and family discount Emmys. Who was I talking to? I met someone at this premiere party the other day, and they're 5-time Emmy winner, Filipina producer.
Ooh.
And she's like, yeah, that's the daytime Emmys. And I'm like, yeah, no, we're at the children's dinner table Emmys now. We have our own small part of the Emmys.
You're too humble. It all counts. It all counts.
Sure.
Well, Eric, where can people find you online?
At Bauzilla, Bauzilla. That goes for Instagram, X, Twitter, and Zwitter, and TikTok. But I'm hardly ever there.
Bauzilla, as you crumble and step on all of the other competition in the VO world.
Saying sorry the entire time.
And you can follow the podcast over at, if you're watching this, then you're on YouTube, and subscribe. And if you're not, then you're listening to us over on Apple, iTunes, or Spotify, or a number of other places where you download podcasts. So you can check out us over at This Means Podcast on Instagram and Facebook, or OFC This Means Pod on X, was Twitter. And we are everywhere. So just search us out and spread the word, because Looney Tunes need your love more than ever, it seems.
What are you talking about? That's ridiculous. Of course you realize this means podcast.
Exactly. Take care, everybody. And remember, that's not all, folks.